Hello, I'm Teresa Harvey, President and CEO of North Orange County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Community Leaders. Today you're in for a special treat. We're going to take a bird's eye look at our Fullerton Airport and have a conversation with our airport manager, Brendan O'Reilly. Brendan was born and raised in Southern California, earned his bachelor's degree and master's degree in aviation studies from Cal State Los Angeles, and earned his pilot license, airframe, power plant mechanic, and lifelong supporter of general aviation. Brandon shares a common goal with airport tenants and business owners in keeping small airports open and operating safely. Brendan served as airport operations manager for the Hayward Executive Airport in the Bay Area and the airport project manager for the County of Los Angeles airports. He's a certified airport executive and currently serves as past president of the Association of California Airports. He's been the airport manager of the Fullerton Municipal Airport since May 2013. For those of you who didn't know, Fullerton Airport is the only general aviation airport in Orange County. It's centrally located in the Los Angeles basin, adjacent to the Interstate 5 and Highway 91. The airport is 3 miles from Knott's Berry Farm, 6 miles from Disneyland. So right in the center of our Southern California metropolitan area. The airport's self-supporting and doesn't receive subsidies from the city. Revenues for the airport come from its operations and maintenance, with any surpluses going into the enterprise airport fund. So welcome, Brendan. I'm really glad to have you here today and to get to know a little more about you.
Thank you, Teresa. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start out. How did you ever get interested and involved in the field of aviation?
Oh, that's an easy one. I was definitely one of those kids who liked looking up at anything flying above me. I was fascinated with airplanes and helicopters, and about the age of 6, I started asking a lot of questions about them and trying to learn. And my dad saw that spark in me, so he actually took me down here. I grew up nearby in Whittier, and we came down here to Fullerton Airport and watched planes, and that became one of my favorite things to do. So then from there, he took me to different air shows and things. And so by the time I was 12, I was joined up with the Civil Air Patrol and doing search and rescue, learning to fly. And I continued that all through high school. And so I actually thought I wanted to be a commercial pilot, and went down that road with training, got my pilot license, and planned to do the airline thing, but just realized it wasn't really for me. I loved flying, but I didn't really want to be flying on someone else's schedule. And kind of bus driving is kind of honestly how I felt about it. So I knew my strength was more on the ground with people and relationships. So I became an aircraft mechanic, and I did that for a while. I enjoyed that. And then I got slowly into airport operations, and just worked my way up all the way from, scraping weeds on the runway and changing runway light bulbs and all that stuff. And I just slowly worked my way up and furthered my education, and here I am. So many years later, obviously.
That's great. Well, it's so interesting to think about when you talk about changing light bulbs on the airport runway and the maintenance that goes on in airport that we don't even think about. I know when our leadership, North Orange County, had an opportunity to come and visit the airport, and I think it was 5 years ago, we came out and saw the tower and really took a deep look at the airport. But I know that things continue to change and evolve at the airport. So what's been new since that time, and what do we see for the future of Fullerton's airport?
Well, yeah, I remember 5 years ago was when Wings opened, and we had just remodeled our lobby and did some ADA upgrades. So Since then, we've been planning actually phase 2 of our, if you remember, our administration building is pretty tight, not a lot of room to grow. So we wanted to extend the building to add on to it. So we started, we've got our architects and engineers on board to do the phase 2 build out. And unfortunately, when we got into the nuts and bolts of that and looked at the way this building was constructed, you see that behind me, the tower, that's what started. And then the administration building was built on, and then the restaurant was built on. And those are all done in the early 50s, they started, and then through the early 60s. So kind of a hodgepodge, if you will. So when the engineers took a look at that, they said, you know what, it's not going to be cost effective, and you're not going to ultimately get the product that you want by doing any modifications to this building. It's just too old, just leave it alone, basically. So, so I would have had that project done by now, but we got a setback there that took about a year and a half to determine those things. So we've been working on an absolutely new building, new administration building. So the current one would be left alone as is, and then we would just add on next door a 7,500 foot 2-story building. So that's one of the most exciting things we're working on now. I'm actually hoping to go to City Council for full approval. We're at about the 40% design stage in that project now. And we've also finished up the environmental portion of that project. So we're doing all that not so fun back end work right now. And when we get to the fun part, which is actually building the new building, that'll be hopefully right about a year to a year and a half from now. So so I have some concept drawings on that if I could
I think
show
that would be a
those.
great thing to share, because I had a preview, and I think it's a really exciting look at our future in Fullerton there at the airport. So bring up those pictures and walk us through it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so exciting to be on the ground floor of innovation and change.
Yeah, especially being with a government enterprise, say what you will, but we get things done not as quickly or sometimes as efficiently as the private sector, but we do get it done, and we get it done correctly usually. So I'm really proud about this design concept. This is what the building would look like.
So what is this building's purpose that we're looking at right now?
Well, this would be the new administration building, which is where my offices are, where you come to do business with the airport for leasing, access to the field, deliveries, all the multitude of things we do. But the real impetus for this project is there's no central meeting place for any type of meetings, or as you know, there's so many different groups of people that use the airport, from Civil Air Patrol to the women pilots, the 99s. There's flying clubs. There's the pilot association. There's even, we were doing the educational field trips with the schools. All those places, there's no home base, if you will. And so really the cool part about this project is the whole so the bottom floor would be the administration building and actually extra office space. And that's a whole nother thing I'd love to talk about in just a minute. But the upstairs would be a big multi-purpose room, which could be sectioned off into smaller, say, classrooms, if you will. So I really want to see all the different groups of the airport and the community coming out to the airport to use that space for meetings and whatever is going on in the city, whatever groups need to use it, like the mixers that the chamber throws. next time we do that, it would be in this building as opposed to the lobby where we did last time.
It's so exciting to form a new gathering spot in the southwest end of our town that really needs some regeneration. And this looks like it would bring a whole new lively center to that part of our community.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of folks that are excited about this end of town. Everyone knows there's potential here. It's kind of the chicken before the egg, who's going to jump in and make a commitment and invest. And I think by the city doing so, we're showing and saying, hey, this is an opportunity down here. And that leads me to, one of the things I'm really excited about is the urban air mobility movement, which is what most people would understand is like Uber Air. So actual air taxis on demand. And these vehicles that are being developed are actually going to be electric, which is a really cool technology. And one of the neatest things about it is they're super quiet. And I know that's one of our concerns, having a busy, thriving airport here in such a dense metropolitan area. But so we're going to be building space out in that lobby and office space to lease to one of those either charter type organizations or an Uber Air type of urban air mobility company that, that technology, of course, everything is being delayed now with COVID, but it was moving incredibly fast before we got into this pandemic. And I believe it'll pick up again very quickly. There's an awful lot of money and a lot of investment being put into this. And we really see this as the future of quick travel in dense, metropolitan places, because, the freeways aren't going to be any less crowded. So if you could come down to Fullerton Airport and jump on an air taxi and get to downtown LA or LAX or in that general area in 12 minutes, time is money. So that's really what we're gearing up for. So this building would encompass all of that. And as you know, one of my big goals coming here, I've been here for 7 years now, is just to get more community involvement, because it really irks me when people say, oh, there's an airport in Fullerton. Well, yes, there is, and that's understandable, but because if you don't fly and you don't have a friend or family member who flies, then you think of airports, you think of getting on an airliner, but this airport is a key asset in the whole national transportation network. And as you know, we have the public safety agencies here, which are very important, but also the flight training aspect. The airline pilots don't learn to fly 737s right off the bat. They start in little Cessnas and build their time and move up to more advanced aircraft. And that's exactly what's happening at airports like Fullerton. So they're very important. Not everybody knows about that or understands, but that's part of my thing, is to just teach the community and share what an important asset the airport is. Not having a meeting place, it's very difficult to do that. So this building, I think, is going to take care of that. And so anyways, that would be the front, entrance there. It's a 2-story, as I said. This is the old building. We basically would reskin that to match the new building. But wings and everything else would be left as is. So this is the back view of the building. And the really neat part about this, so these would be the offices on the ground level. Up here, there's a kind of an aircraft viewing area balcony, because that's another thing we don't have here at the airport, unfortunately. A lot of folks just like to come out and look at airplanes, like I did as a kid. And there's a couple spots to do that, but they're not ideal. And this would provide that. We would have this open in the day. And then when there are, gatherings or meetings, these big windows or doors open up kind of like hangar doors to bring kind of an inside outside feel. And this room would be able to hold, I think, 200 to 250 people. So God bless us, we get out of COVID before too long, and we can go back to large gatherings. Yeah, this is going to be kind of a little hub of the city, is what I hope. And this is the current building now. So we're just kind of tying those in together. Development one here is our architect. He's actually a pilot here. He's done a bunch of work for NASA and very engaged in the aviation community. And I think he's done a really beautiful design for us. So yeah, it's very exciting. This is like
It is exciting. And I'm so glad to see that our airport is looking forward. One of the dominant features that's in all of these pictures is the tower. Explain the role of the tower and its importance in both public safety and mobility for our community and the Southern California region.
Yeah, so the air traffic control tower there, that was built in '59. And so we have, at any time, there's 2 or 3 full-time controllers up there. And what they do is separate air traffic. And, there's a misconception that they tell pilots where to go. That's not actually the case. Busier airports like LAX, they can do that, in fact, but their main purpose is to separate air traffic. So we don't want airplanes coming together for obvious reasons. And there's of course an established traffic pattern and a flow and kind of the rules of the road in the sky as well. But our airport, like today, it is hit and miss. Some days are slower. I don't know what the buzz was today, but we had an aircraft leaving every minute for probably 30 minutes straight. It was very, very busy. So that's the role of the controllers up there. And it's an important one for sure.
And you mentioned Wings Cafe, and I think that's a treasure that if people haven't had a chance to explore it, it's certainly opportunity. But it's by far not the only business that's located as a commercial entity at the airport. Tell us a little more about some of the other businesses that operate out of the airport and the critical role they play in the whole scheme of keeping aviation alive in Southern California.
Well, okay, so a classic example is Aviation Facilities Incorporated, or known as AFI. They're just west of the tower building here. And that's literally a dad and son flight school that was started 53 years ago. So they've literally trained thousands of pilots. Once a year they hold a barbecue and invite back anybody who's ever learned to fly at AFI. And when you attend one of those, you're rubbing shoulders with captains from all the major airlines. So that's a really neat feature. And they're still doing flight training today. That's what they do. They train pilots. So very successful flight school. And just to the east of the tower building is what we call a fixed base operator. So they take care of anything you need flying into a unique, and out of not your airport. Let's say you're traveling, you've got to go to an airport, obviously. So they provide maintenance, parking, cleaning of the aircraft, catering, pretty much anything a pilot would need. So general aviation has been here since the early 80s. So another, solid business thriving here. They sell fuel as well. And then, one of our newer businesses is Hangar 21, and they do helicopter tours and charters and sightseeing and photography and all kinds of things. When helicopters are very expensive to operate, so they do whatever they can to make money with those machines. And they also use their hangar, which is, a really nice developed hangar for weddings, banquets, big corporate parties, things like that. So of course that's been on hold also for 6 months, but when restrictions get lifted, that's a very unique and also a very cool place to come hang out, because your backdrop is an active runway, and you get to see everything going on here while you're having your party or your wedding and whatnot. So and then, like I mentioned, we have our public safety operators. The Highway Patrol operates out of here, Anaheim Police Department, obviously Orange County Fire Authority is all based here for their air operations. So we also have Mercy Air Ambulance, which is a very important thing to have for air trauma or trauma patients to get airlifted. We actually have a second Channel 4 News helicopter based here. They've been here for the last few years. And a multitude of other things. There's, radar imaging and surveying companies, and list goes on. I think we're anywhere around 28 to 30 businesses operating on the field at any given time.
I think that's great. And it certainly has grown under your leadership. I commend you for that. I think it seems to me that it would be unique that the airport is covering its own costs and really being self-sustaining, with additional funds going back to allow you to reinvest in the enterprise of the airport. So I know that one of your tenants that I've had the opportunity recently to visit is Wings Cafe. You showed it in your pictures there. Tell us a little bit about some of the activities that even with COVID are going on that visitors to the airport or visitors to the restaurant can take advantage of.
Well, we had a lot of activities going on, including Airport Day. One of my favorites was the field trips with the local schools, and then just independent smaller group tours. So we had to put those on hold, unfortunately, but we are still doing the every second Sunday of the month. So that would be this coming Sunday. We open the gate here in the front by the terminal, and it's classic aircraft display day. So you get anywhere from 10 to 30 aircraft that fly in, and they are on display, and folks can go right up to them and talk to the pilots. So oftentimes the pilots will let people sit in there and ask questions and touchy-feely and all that, and always draws a lot of kids, which is always one of my favorite things to see. And yeah, and most folks grab lunch while they're here, or breakfast, and so that goes on from about 10 to 2 once a month. So we've been doing that. We've been, people are outside, able to maintain their distancing and wearing a mask. So it's pretty safe, I think. And so we're going to continue with that for now. And then the other things, we're not sure at this time. I know we have a car show that's planned in January. We've been doing that about 5 years now. We're actually looking to the CDC for guidance on that one, to see if that's something we should hold on the facility. But I'm happy we're able to do the display day once a month, but unfortunately right now that's about all we're doing. So people can still come out and walk on the ramp and get to go up close to the planes and pilots. So that's a good thing.
It sounds like a great family event. And I know that I think as we spend more time with our families and are really in situations where we're not allowed to go to a lot of other public places, this would provide a great venue and one that people could learn a lot from.
Sure.
Another area of operations that I think people forget is under your control or under your jurisdiction is drones. And drones continue to become a more and more important part of our community as photography advances and people are using drones for photography and other surveillance. Talk a little bit about drones and drone regulations and the challenges and opportunity they present to you as an airport operator.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'm a hobbyist drone guy myself. I have a little DJI drone that I like to fly. Unfortunately, airports and drones don't get along very well because, there's two types of drone pilots or the better term is UAS, unmanned aerial system. So when we get drones around the field, they're typically not authorized. So it's usually what we call a hobbyist like myself. So you can go down and buy a drone and be able to fly one. And most of them have software developed into them that won't let them fly in airspace around an airport, but sometimes that can be defeated. So that causes obvious problems and a hazard to aircraft operating in and out of the airport. So we had some issues with that in the past, probably about when the drone thing really went crazy, about a year and a half ago. We were seeing them pop up at nighttime, and the controllers would see them. Usually they would alert one of my staff, or if Anaheim Police or CHP was up in the air in a helicopter, they would try to track them down. That's really tough to do, to be honest. So so the other thing, the professional folks who are commercial operators, they've already been vetted and licensed through the FAA. And so if you see one downtown doing real estate survey or an event, photo, those pilots know what they're doing. They know the rules. Unfortunately, the hobbyists that come around and goof around, they don't necessarily know the rules. So so there's a lot of education that still has to be done. Like on our website, we put up a drones know before you fly kind of thing, because we do get a lot of people calling in and asking, is it safe to fly my drone by the airport? And so we work with them and ask them where they're going to be, how high they're going to fly, that kind of thing. So it's an exciting technology. I know even our police department has a drone team now, or a UAS team. So as long as they're done safely and the pilot is responsible, they're a good thing. But they can also be a hazard. So so that's pretty much drones.
Yeah, it's just interesting to know that all of our air traffic has to be work together to make sure that everybody is safe. And whether it's in your neighborhood, a park, or certainly not near the airport, but we need to be aware of some of these things. Another thing I found fascinating is to really look at the history of the airport and how long this airport has been operating and been a part of Fullerton's history. 1927 seems to be in the early stages of aviation. I mean, not the earliest, but certainly when it comes to municipal airport getting established as early as 1927, it seems remarkably foresighted for the city and the community. Do you know why Fullerton was selected as the site of an airport? Or, and I just, because I don't know the history, and I'm hoping that maybe you can lend a little bit of background to it.
Well, I know a little bit. The airport was being used as an airport all the way back to 1914, when I believe this was a pig farm. So so that's kind of one of those a lot of people like to joke when pigs fly kind of thing. But farmers it was a big open field, and that's what they needed to land and take off from. So it just became, I think, because of the fair weather and the onshore flow. Those are all things that you need for piloting, especially in the early days. But either way, it became more and more popular with more people coming and landing. And then that's when that first airway beacon, the light, that's what was used for navigation back in those days, was just lights. In fact, the airmail routes were literally lights miles apart on a path that the airmail pilots would just follow from one light to the next. And so that went up, and then not long after went up the first hangar, and we have pictures of those. You know, they're on the website also. We have a whole history section. So, but yeah, we do have a rich history here, and it's pretty phenomenal to think that we've been around 90 years. So, with that, of course, you know, the city indoctrinated the airport officially in 1928. So that leads us to our 100-year anniversary is coming up in not too long, and that's really exciting for me because that's a huge deal. You know, there used to be some 30 something airports in Orange County, and as you know, we're down to 3. We've got John Wayne, which is mostly airline, you know, commercial stuff. There is some GA definitely down there, and then Los Alamitos, which is a military base, but we're the only strictly general aviation airport left in the county. So it's very important to keep us alive and open. So there's a lot of things that go along with that. You know, being good neighbors with controlling the noise and things like that. Safety is obviously always a huge concern. Yeah, so I'm looking really forward to 100-year. I think we can really have some good shindigs going over here and promotions for that. That's a very special.
I definitely think so. I think 100-year celebration is going to be one that we will all look forward. By then you should have your new terminal and airport area built.
You bet.
How I get asked all the time how large a plane can fly into Fullerton Airport.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the quick answer is like an 8 to 10 passenger aircraft. And the reason for that is because we're limited by our pavement strength. So we have a weight limit of 12,500 pounds. So the typical aircraft that can meet that weight limit is going to be an 8 to 10 passenger, you know, business type corporate aircraft. Which is, you know, like the twin turboprops you see a lot coming in. Those are common and popular charter aircraft and business aircraft. We do get some jets. It's not too often. We're also limited by our runway, which is 3,121 feet. Most jet operators want a minimum of 4,000 feet just as a buffer. But some operators do come in from time to time, and we do commonly see quite a bit of the 8 to 10 passenger business type aircraft. So that's it. The runway is actually very strong, but as those aircraft taxi off, some of our connector taxiways and things like that are not stressed enough with the pavement strength. So we might have somebody sink into the asphalt.
But we certainly wouldn't want in one situation to destroy the airport for others. As we look to 100 years, do you foresee any opportunity to expand either the capacity of the airport or the size of the runway, or because of its landlocked nature, is it pretty much going to stay as a unique facility within our little community?
Yeah, it's going to stay as is. So, but that's not a bad thing. You know, we are bordered by Dale Avenue or Dale Street on the west side, and that's technically Buena Park. So that would be complicated, to say the least, to expand. We're also bordered by heavy industrial area just to the east. So if we were to expand our runway, we'd have to try and, you know, seize those properties or through eminent domain or whatnot. And that, you know, could take 20 years, and I think my career would be over. So I'm not interested in getting into anything like that. What I am interested in is we have a niche, like I said, general aviation, which is small stuff. Well, technically general aviation is anything that is not an airline flight or a military flight. So everything else. So that's what we do, and we're good at it, and our facility suits that. So why change it? We've got a great formula. We've got a great safety record. We're making money, which, we're very fortunate to be in that situation, to be able to afford to build a $6 million building like this. A lot of small airports aren't able to do that. So we just had the right assets and the right tools and leadership here to make it all come together to be a good, highly utilized airport. And if you think about it, it's 86 acres. It's not that big of a facility. Just to compare that, my last airport where I was assistant manager was 550 acres. So we're doing pretty good, I think. And we are operations, which an operation is a takeoff or landing. We're up about 20% right now. COVID has actually helped us. It's one of the things flying that you can do safely and in isolation, and people are doing it. They're out here flying a lot. So our operations are growing, and yeah, so I'm really happy with where we're at. And if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Let's just maximize the utilization and keep doing what we're doing.
Well, Brandon, I think that's a great story. What a success to have an airport that's profitable and busy and is serving so many public needs with police and fire and the CHP and rescue helicopters there. I think our Fullerton Airport is a gem that is here to stay. I invite you to add any other closing comments you might have, anything I might have forgotten to ask you. But I'm looking forward to another 100 years of great operations. And to really share how we as a business community can really share the gem that you have. So maybe you can help inform me a little bit about how we can tell the business community a little more about the gem that we have in Fullerton.
Well, as you know, when I was hired, we started talking, and I'd shared my plans for growth and bringing in the community support. So that's still very much the plan. Just unfortunately, it's taking longer than I thought it was going to take. And as I talked about in the beginning, we went down that road of expanding the building, only to find out a year and a half later that everyone says, no, that's a bad idea. Let's start over again. So we've stayed the course with the new building, and we're finally getting to the part where it's going to happen. So I think that's really going to be the impetus, like I said, for having a place to come to hold people and events, mixers, whatnot. Who knows? Like, we even have one of the Orange County voting boxes are out front now. But all those things tie in to the airport as a little pillar of the community. So that's my goal, and we're going to keep working towards that. When we get that building built, I think it's going to be unstoppable, what we can do here. So
that's I think just remarkable. Brendan, I really appreciate your coming in and talking with us today. I think we have a gem in our community that, as we see this building develop, will become a new focal point for community activation and for community engagement on the west side of Fullerton. We look forward to the next 100 years and a great celebration on the 100th anniversary. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. And I think your motto at the airport is fly friendly. So we can say, go fly friendly, mask up, and continue to support your local business community. Thank you again, Brandon. And we will see this group back next week for another exciting program.
Sounds good. I hope to see everybody down here when we start breaking ground.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.